Welcome to Alasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. All right, and we're back. We are back in the Alasquatch studio, back from Tennessee, from the Gatlinburg Bigfoot Conference, and we're gonna talk about that today. We're gonna talk about our experiences, impressions of the conference and Gatlinburg in general. And I have Mrs. Legume, aka the old lady, in the studio with me, and she's not gonna say anything.
Hi, everybody. You just have to give me a chance.
I'm going to have to start pointing to her when I talk. So what's it like being back in Alaska after being in 100+ degree heat?
It was so hot every day. Even though we lived in Kentucky for a couple years after we got married and I go back to visit, I always seem to forget about how oppressive the heat and humidity can be on an Alaskan. But it was, I'm glad we went. I'm looking forward to going back, perhaps a different time of year when it's not so hot. But I thought it was lovely. You know, I've always wanted to see the Smoky Mountains. Now I can say I've done it. But let's go again when it's not quite so hot.
Yeah. Well, much like Mammoth Cave, I lived, 2 or 3 hours from the Smoky Mountains and never went, and we go there and I tell people we're going to go to the Smoky Mountains. We're going to go to Gatlinburg. And they're like, oh, have you been before? And I'm like, no. And they can't believe it. They're like, what? Cause most people that, a lot of my friends, they go there, they recreate, they go on their honeymoons and stuff like that. Like everybody's gone at least, once or twice, and I'd never gone. And this was our first time. And I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of had an idea, but I didn't really know what it was all about. I'd never gone there. And from what I understand, because our time was limited there, we spent a lot of time in Gatlinburg, and then we had a nice Airbnb up on the mountain, or a mountain. I don't know if the mountain we were on had a name. And we had a really nice view. But we didn't really, get to spend any time in the national park, in the Smoky Mountain National Park. And I understand there's some awesome trails and some great scenery up there. But because of our schedule, we were just kind of like, we got to go. We had to be in town. And we did a lot of walking in town. And after that,
I have to stop you.
Okay.
There was no way we were hiking in 102 degree weather. You're deluding yourself if you think either one of us would have survived hiking in the national park in that weather.
I think I could have done it. I just needed to stay hydrated. But I couldn't have done that and all the walking and stuff we did in town. It would have to be one or the other. You got to figure town is going to be hotter than the woods anyway, because you're not going to have you don't have the tree cover in town, and you got all that concrete reflecting the heat back and forth. But in the woods, it's always cooler in the woods.
There's also a lot more moisture in the woods, which means more humidity. I didn't stop sweating for the 4 days we were there. It was just nonstop sweating. And, we don't have air conditioning in Alaska because we have such mild temperatures. And what people don't realize when you're not used to air conditioning, it's a shock to the system because we keep our house at 70 degrees. So when you're coming out of 95, 100 degree weather and you come into a place that's set at 70 degrees on air conditioning, it feels like it's 50. Like you're freezing. I don't like air conditioning.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was there for a few days before you, so I was a little bit used to it. And I had done some, I'd helped my cousin with some manual labor stuff. And, well, let me correct myself. I say manual labor, literally, it was like a pickup truck load or less. Maybe a couple of dozen things. The most probably weighing 40 pounds. that I helped him load into a truck. And that was, that about got me. We went to somebody's house and was helping him. The guy was moving and he was giving some stuff to my cousin. And at one point, the guy that's moving, he was an older gentleman. He looks at me and he calls his wife in the kitchen and is like, "Get this boy some water." So I'm assuming I probably looked like I needed it.
I think you had a pretty good description for Gatlinburg. I'm going to let you say it because it was just too perfect.
Well, because we came in through, oh, that's great. That's awesome. We came in through Pigeon Forge. Or you guys did too, right?
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah. So just to clarify, she went and spent time with her sister and then came to Gatlinburg with her sister. And I had spent time with my family and came in. So we got to Gatlinburg separately. And we came in through Pigeon Forge. And I'm driving through Pigeon Forge, and that place is, there's stuff everywhere. There's all kinds of like tourist attractions. And then when you get to Gatlinburg, it's kind of the same, but everything's a little bit more condensed. Like in Pigeon Forge, I feel like you have to have a vehicle to get from place to place because everything's kind of spread far apart. There's kind of like a main drag where like all the buildings and stuff are. And then you get to Gatlinburg and everything is kind of within walking distance. And there's that main strip there where people are walking. And it reminded me of like Las Vegas, kind of like a redneck Las Vegas. And it also, like, I didn't think about it, but it's also, I guess, a lot like Branson, Missouri. Remember that King of the Hill episode where they go to Branson and they're singing Blue Moon of Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of reminded me of Branson a little bit, where there's like a bunch of attractions and stuff like that to go to. They're all kind of country themed. I don't remember seeing any like concerts or anything though. It was all like attractions and like museums and rides and stuff. There wasn't really any like concerts though, like Branson is known for.
Well, they were singing live music at the distillery, but I don't think they have, I think the space is kind of prime real estate. So I was expecting a little bit more of a quaint town. I didn't realize how geared they were towards tourism. Now, I did look a couple places up before we got there, but I was expecting almost like our small town feel with just a little bit more activity. I mean, this place was so busy, so crowded, and anything you could think of they had. I mean, it was just shop after shop after shop. It was totally like Las Vegas, or maybe even a larger version of Atlantic City, the boardwalk there in Atlantic City. But I was surprised about how busy it was. And I think a lot of the people are tourists from the local area. You know, as Alaskans, we have to fly everywhere. So we're used to traveling great distances, exploring all over, versus I've noticed people in the South have a tendency to only explore about 4 to 5 hours outside of their home. So I can see how Gatlinburg would be a prime destination for a lot of people in Kentucky, Indiana, the Carolinas. So I think a lot of the people weren't locals, but they were from the South.
Yeah. I was kind of taken aback by a little bit how tourist trappy it was. A lot of stuff there kind of seemed like it was designed to separate you from your money, and and some of it, and I'm not saying it was necessarily a bad thing. And I always kind of feel like I'm lucky when we go to places like that, and I always feel pressured because I know like I have a limited amount of space to take stuff back with me. We're only allowed 2 suitcases and a carry-on, and the suitcases can only weigh so much. And then we've got to take our merch and stuff for the conference. So I'm always thinking like, oh man, that's really cool. That's really neat. I can't get that back home. Like there's no way I can get that. So it really helps me curb my spending because being so limited with what I can take back. So, it's always nice to go to those tourist traps and know that I'm kind of insulated from being separated from my money for things that I don't really need. Although it is nice to pick up a souvenir, here or there. And I got a couple of things that I think are kind of neat and unique. But I was really surprised at the amount of traffic, the amount of foot traffic. Like you, I want to go back, but I want to go back maybe in the fall when it's a little cooler and maybe less people. I don't know. Didn't seem to be a ton of children running around.
That's a plus.
Yeah, on the streets or in the conference. Now, when we went to Crypticon in Lexington, there were a lot of kids. And the mountain monster guys were there, but they're kind of, a big draw for kids. But this one, I don't recall really seeing any kids. I'm sure there were a few, but it really seemed like the number of like little kids, was a lot less than other conferences I've seen. And even just like walking up and down the streets in Gatlinburg, I don't remember. I mean, I see a few here and there, but I don't remember seeing a lot of kids.
Well, I had a theory for that. I think a lot of people who have kids are probably going to go towards Pigeon Forge. There's the water parks there, some roller coasters. I think a little bit more kid activity. And Gatlinburg was quite expensive. From the Airbnbs to the hotels, it averaged anywhere between $150 to $350 a night on average. So I think a lot of times people are probably not going to want to spend that kind of money to bring their entire family and then have to also pay for all the expenses of getting into different places. So I think it's like Las Vegas, it's for older, a little bit older people, not old, but older.
Yeah. And, we had Friday to kind of explore Gatlinburg, and we didn't, we left the Airbnb and we went into town, but we didn't really go anywhere outside of town. We kind of stayed in town. We didn't explore Pigeon Forge really at all, other than driving through it. And then, parking was an issue. We ended up like having to find a parking spot on Friday where we could kind of pay, and then you had to leave the car there all day. You couldn't really come and go, and that that's not something we're really used to dealing with. And so we were kind of limited in where we wanted to go there, just there on the strip. But we actually saw some really cool stuff. We went to the Ripley's Aquarium. We took your niece there. We went to the Ripley's Museum, which honestly, I think the one in Atlantic City was probably a little bit better. The one in Gatlinburg, it seemed like it was a little bit more spread out. It was like multiple floors, and I don't think the attractions were quite as interactive as the one in Atlantic City. But this is also like post-COVID too, and I was a little bit more like, well, I'm not touching that. I do remember seeing some interactive things, but I was just like, I don't want to touch that. Everybody's been touching that. So maybe that might have had something to do with it, but it seemed like I remember more like fun things to do at the Atlantic City Ripley's, where you could like walk through that tunnel that was turning and stuff. And that seemed like it was a little bit more fun and interactive than the Gatlinburg Ripley's. But the aquarium was really cool. But you could buy tickets to get in like all the Ripley attractions, and they had like a haunted house. We didn't go in that, but your sister and niece did. And then they had some kind of car museum there that we didn't get to go into. I don't think that was a Ripley's attraction though. But there was some cool stuff there that I'd like to go back and check out that we just didn't have the time to get into. I wanted to go to Smoky Mountain Knife Works. That fun fact, that knife over there, see that Swiss Army knife over there in the corner with Bigfoot on it? I actually ordered that from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. So that actually came from that area. And I've always wanted, me and my dad used to get those catalogs all the time, the Smoky Mountain Knife Works catalog. And I always wanted to go in there. And it's supposed to be like the biggest knife store in the country, maybe. And we didn't get to go. We didn't have time.
Well, you should have said something. We would have made time. You have to point these things out. But we had some good food too. What was that place we had breakfast at? The
Pancake Factory.
That was really good. And you can tell it was popular. There was a line the whole time we were there. And then we went to what was rated the highest steakhouse in the area. And I think it deserves the rating, the Alamo. So
yeah. Well, fun fact, we were standing in line at the Pancake Factory. We were the last people in line. And I'm standing there, I'm facing the building, and I hear you go, "Oh, hi, Seth." And I turn around, and here comes Seth Breedlove and the Small Town Monsters crew walking up. And they stood in line behind us. And well, no, they actually got to go in before us because they were a smaller party or something. And so they got in and got seated before we did, even though they were in line behind us. And that was funny because you recognize, I don't even know, like, I wasn't paying attention. I was oblivious, I'm just wanting to go in and get food. And you saw them walking. I'm surprised you recognized them.
He's pretty recognizable, I think. I mean, he dresses a unique way, and that hair of his, is pretty recognizable. So I don't know. I've seen him plenty of times at conferences, and then also, in his documentaries. So I recognize him, no problem. But he had been there multiple times and made some recommendations. You could tell people who had been there before all said, "Oh, make sure you go here," and then, "Oh, make sure you order this." So you can tell people seem to enjoy Gatlinburg, and I really enjoyed it. I just think I want to try it a different time of year, and definitely explore the park more. But I don't think I could have hiked in that kind of weather. No way.
Well, the steakhouse we went to, the Alamo Steakhouse, we're in the steakhouse, like waiting on our food, or maybe just getting ready to order, and one of my buddies from Kentucky had texted me and was like, "Oh, I love the Alamo Steakhouse. It's my favorite." And I sent him a picture of the menu. And I was like, "This one?" But yeah, it was good. It was really good food. A lot of wait times though. No matter where you go, you're probably going to wait for food.
Yeah, that's pretty normal for touristy areas, though, especially when, they're quite busy. So we're kind of used to that, Basically, when you're starting to get hungry, go ahead and go to the restaurant because you're going to be waiting 30 minutes to maybe even an hour for your food. So I think we're pretty experienced when it comes to travel. We know, don't wait till you're starving to start looking for food. Go get food. Like I ordered that pizza the moment we arrived at the Airbnb. I was finding a delivery place for pizza before you even got there because I knew when you arrived, you were going to be hungry. And the pizza was there, right after you or right before you?
It was there when I got there, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that reminds me of that time we were in Vegas and we wanted to go to the buffet was it the Bellagio? Or?
Yeah.
And we get there and we wait 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 and the line's moving and we waiting and we waiting and we wait. And I'm starving. Like I'm shaking. I'm so hungry. And I think we're at the end of the line. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like just around that corner is the buffet." And me and some other guy walk down and turn and look down the corner and the line just keeps going as far as the eye can see. Like there's no end in sight. Like I think it went down and turned another corner. And I was like, we have to go somewhere else. Like I cannot wait this long to eat. And we ended up not getting to eat there. So it's stuff like that you're like, that's it's trained us to find food. And when we went to the Alamo Steakhouse, they said it was going to be an hour and a half, and we ended up only waiting 45 minutes. But yeah, I mean, you've got to plan those things. You've got to plan to get food in advance of when you're going to need it, because you might not be able to get it when you need it. So yeah, that was a good meal. I'm glad we went there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great steak and really good dessert. We took key lime pie to go. You had cheesecake to go, and I had it for breakfast the next morning. It was so good. I love key lime pie. But and then I think my next favorite spot was probably the Old Smoky Distillery. I really liked that place. It was you can tell it's popular. People, if you go, you have to go to the Old Smoky Distillery. It is kind of touristy, but man, is it good moonshine. And I don't actually really like alcohol, especially hard liquor. And I enjoyed pretty much every flavor we tried. And it was good.
To be fair, that's not real moonshine.
Well, I know, because the first one we had, remember she said this is pretty much just to wake you up? That was pure moonshine. That was strong. Yeah. I need the candy flavored stuff.
Nobody drinks moonshine because they're like, it's so good. Nobody drinks it for the taste.
Yeah, they just want the effects. But no, I like the heavily flavored moonshine.
The tourist moonshine?
Exactly. It was good, though.
Yeah. Oh, it was. And well, so let's tell people what's going on. So you go in, and it's a distillery where they make moonshine, and it's a huge store. Like we didn't even look at all of it. We only looked at like a quarter of it, I think. Like there was like 2 corners of the room or of the building that we didn't even go into.
And a live band.
And you walk in, and they have this little station set up, and they have bartenders, and they give you samples, and it costs you give them $5, and they give you, I don't even remember how many.
It was 9.
Was it 9 drinks?
Yep.
I didn't think it was that many, but they give you samples, but it's not a shot. It's literally like a thimble. It's just enough to get the taste of what you're drinking. It's not a shot glass. If it was a shot glass, most people have to be carried out of there. So it's just a little thimble. They start off with the real moonshine that tastes like paint thinner. And then they give you 2 shots that are pretty strong. Or, well, I say shots, but I mean thimbles. They give you 2 drinks that are pretty strong. And then they start giving you the more palatable drinks, like the flavored stuff. They had like watermelon and the Java bean and the apple pie and what else did they have?
White chocolate strawberry.
White chocolate and strawberry.
Limoncello was really good.
Yeah.
Blue raspberry, which is like Jolly Ranchers. So is the watermelon. It just tastes like someone dissolved Jolly Ranchers in moonshine. What it tasted like. And there was another one that we had banana pudding. I actually really enjoyed that one, but we could only take so much back.
Yeah. Again, we're faced with like, well, we can only take so much back. We still ended up buying like six jars.
I could have easily bought a dozen. Just pretty much every flavor I tried, I enjoyed, but we were limited on space. But the great part about it is you pay $5 to try these samples to figure out what you want, what flavors you like, what you don't, and then they give you a coupon for $5 off if you make a purchase. So basically, you get your money back if you buy something.
Yeah. So we paid $5 each to do the tasting. They gave us $10 in coupons. So basically, the tasting didn't cost us anything. And then we bought so much that they gave us a cooler, a little like soft-sided cooler to put the stuff in. We ended up, I think the stuff that we opened while we were there, we ended up like leaving with your sister. Mm-hmm. And we ended up bringing only like 3 of the 6 home or something.
We brought back 4 of 6 and we gave one away as a gift.
Yeah. And the strawberry, I think, was probably my favorite too, because like you said, it tastes almost like strawberry milk. Like it's dangerous. Like I don't think the alcohol content is like that crazy. I think it's like 40 proof or something. So it's
not that crazy. It's only 40 proof.
Well, maybe not even that.
But you're right. Yeah. I don't think it was super high because I was able to drink quite a bit over ice and only feel like pleasant. I wasn't, Yeah, you can drink a lot. It is dangerous.
Yeah. And I think we've still got a thing of apple pie up there that I'm kind of...
Yeah, and Java.
Yeah. Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's Java up there too. Oh, you got excited.
We'll try and save it. We got company coming. We'll try and save some for them. But yeah, I really enjoyed the distillery, and I could have looked around a lot more. There's a lot of stuff we didn't even see. I'm sure there were flavors on the other walls that we didn't even like see. And that was a cool experience. I know basically how moonshine is made. But they had books and stuff, like you could get into the history of it. There was all kinds of stuff there, even if you're not into drinking the moonshine, if you're just interested in like bootlegging and what they call them, like moon runners or something like that, or shine runners and stuff like that. That's how NASCAR got started. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. They would, build these cars, these race cars, and they would run the shine in them. They would drive from place to place. Sometimes they would, black out, drive with no lights on so that the law wouldn't see them or catch on. And that's kind of how some of the first like stock car races came about. They were racing their shine cars.
Well, I know the Duke boys did it.
Yeah.
I remember that in their show. No, it was a lot of fun, and you can tell they want you to enjoy your experience. They had windows into the distillery, and you could see it at every stage, like from beginning to end. They showed you every single stage, what it looks like. You can smell it to the, what's that called, mash or something?
Yeah, the mash.
You can smell it, and they had some great deals. We bought 6 jars, and we got 1 jar free. We got a cooler, and we got 2 cases of like margarita mix too. They gave us. So we got a lot for our money.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't get to try any.
It's like bonuses. Yeah. They'll walk you through it. They're like, if you buy this many, you get this. If you buy this many, you get this.
And that was the old Smoky distillery. Now there's other distilleries, because I noticed your sister had bought some from a different place called like Sugarland or something. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even see that place. I don't know where that place was.
It wasn't that far away. Like it was on the same strip.
We probably walked right by it and I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I think if we plan on going in the fall, next fall, not this fall, like we're thinking, then we'll definitely be able to take our time walking. It won't be as hot or oppressive, and we won't have any commitments. Yeah. So we were there for a convention. So and anything outside of it was just bonus, but we were there to work.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the convention, so this takes us, we walked the streets of Gatlinburg. We saw the aquarium. We saw Ripley's. We almost died from heat exhaustion. I packed six bottles of moonshine back to the car in 100-degree heat. I remember you saying something like, "Oh, I hope they don't explode," and I was like, "Oh, they're not going to explode." And then, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, "What if they do explode?"
No, so that was Friday night. We had the option to set up, so we parted ways. My family went on to the Airbnb, and you and I went back to the vehicle to grab our merch. And we have learned from previous conventions to put your merch, if you're going to walk it at least, in your rolling suitcases, so it's not so hard to get it there.
I know. I gotta give us props. Like, if anything, we learn as we go along, and we adapt as we go. And we've almost, I dare say it, but we've almost got it down to a science where we know how much of what we can pack in a suitcase. We're still working, I think, where we could probably use some improvement is probably with the numbers. It seems like we always bring too many t-shirts and maybe just a smidge too many books. But I think there's some other stuff that we could probably like get some more stickers and more smaller things that would probably sell. We just have to design them and make them that we could probably, save some space with and some weight. But yeah, I mean, we've got 2 suitcases, all the stuff that goes on our table, all the stuff we sell, our tablecloth, like basically our entire operation breaks down into those 2 suitcases. They're on wheels. They gave us instructions as to how to get to the conference center to set up. And I was a little confused by the instructions.
A map would have been nice, I think.
Yeah. Well, that, and I didn't understand, like, literally you could drive off the street into this little parking garage area underneath the conference center and drive into the conference center, like right next to the room where the vendors were, stop, unload, and then I guess pull through and come out the other side or something. I didn't realize that. I didn't know like that's necessarily what was going on by reading the instructions. So we walked down in there, and I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal really. And we ended up I
think that was actually better for us because once you drop the stuff off, one of us would have had to have taken the car, found a parking spot again, and then walk back. And it made more sense for you and I to walk. We were nicely parked.
Yeah. Well, that, and we had, 2 suitcases on wheels. It was probably more efficient, like you were saying. If one of us would have had to, go and move the car, put it God knows where, then walk back from God knows where, and then help finish setting up. And I think the way we did it was probably the most economical way to do it. Plus, I mean, we didn't have that much stuff anyway. It's not like we were some of those other guys that had, these big, huge displays and stuff like that. Everything literally fit in 2 suitcases. So we had it. We had everything set up Friday night or Friday afternoon, like late Friday afternoon, and that was kind of a relief. Like just knowing that, okay, in the morning we just walk up, we come in here, we're ready to go. We don't have to worry about setting up. We don't have to worry about finding our spot, which we had a little bit of trouble finding our spot too. And I guess that's something else. Every time we do one of these conferences, I always kind of remark on how the the organizers, how organized they are. And so we're walking down this entryway with our suitcases, and there's a man standing, because I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to check in somewhere probably, and there's a man standing at the end of this what is it, a entryway here, it's for cars, and we're walking with suitcases, and there's a man standing there, and he's got on like a security uniform. He's armed security. He's got a gun. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to like tell this guy who we are. He's going to check us off a list and tell us where to go. Literally, I think we could have walked past that man and not said a word, and I don't think he was going to stop us. I think I said, like, is this where the vendors go for the conference? And he was like, oh, yeah, over there somewhere or something. Like, he didn't care. He did. Because I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not the person that checks us in. So we keep going. We get inside the building eventually. We're just wandering around at this point. Like, two people off the street with suitcases. We don't have our Lasquatch shirts on at this point. Although I think I might have had my Black Rifle Bigfoot shirt on, but still, that's not an official uniform. And we're just wandering around inside this conference building with these suitcases. I mean, it looks like we just got off the airplane or something. And I don't think, not once did anybody like, hey, who are you guys with? Or we didn't get checked in. Nobody like stopped us. Nobody asked us where we needed to go. I found our table purely by just like wandering up and down the rows. And we got set up. Again, nobody,
I didn't see a single staff member the night before.
Yeah. Nobody, said anything about it. And I thought, well, maybe, in the morning when we come in. And again, we came in the morning of the conference. Did we go in the same way? Yeah, we did. Walked in the same way. This time we weren't carrying anything. I mean, we literally looked like a couple of people walking off the street. Again, nobody stopped us. Nobody questioned us. Nobody asked for our ID. We walked over to our table. We sat down. We waited for the conference to open. We started doing business. Again, the conference opened. People started walking in. The conference started happening. And later on in the day, I think it was probably it was almost around lunchtime when I start looking and I noticed some of the other vendors around us have these yellow bracelets on. And I think I asked one of them, I'm like, did you get that when you checked in? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, we need to go check in. So, cause I'm thinking at this point, like the conference was almost half over with, I think. And I didn't want there to be any problems. Like maybe when we start to break down or like if one of us had to leave the building, I didn't want anybody to have a problem getting back in. And, so I was like, well, I should probably go check in. So I go up to this window they had open, and I asked this girl working at the window, I'm like, hey, is this where the vendors are supposed to check in? Because I never got like a bracelet or anything. And she goes, oh, that's that girl's problem. And points to this other girl that's like walking away. And she hears her and turns around and is like, what do you need? And I was like, well, I'm a vendor and I never got like checked in. I just need to make sure. And she's like, oh, she says, do you want me to bring your bracelets by? And I was like, well, yeah, I said, does it really matter? I mean, I just don't want to get kicked out or anything. And she kind of like shrugged and walked off. And then it was, I don't know how many hours later, she came and brought us bracelets finally. But, it wasn't a big deal. Nobody gave us a hard time. Nobody tried to kick us out or anything. But I was just a little surprised at how, I guess, unofficial everything was. And I think if I remember correctly, we actually did check in at Crypticon. But it was at the front desk.
There was a clear place to check in because there was really only one entrance to that building. You came in, there's people sitting at a desk, and then they had lanyards for us and everything with our names on it. These didn't really have any uniqueness. Pretty much the vendors just had
I think it was the same ones that maybe the VIP people got.
Yeah, it was, there were no lanyards or anything, which is fine. But yeah, it was a little weird because I was actually more concerned about if we don't check in, what if they say, oh, they didn't show up, and then they won't let you come back? Like when you apply to, for a booth the next time, they'll be like, oh, those guys never showed up. It's like, no, we did.
Yeah. Well, there was an empty booth across us to the right and one right directly behind us. And I never looked at the map to see who it was supposed to be. I don't know why they didn't show up. And at some point, somebody came and got the tables and took them away. They
had the tables cleared before the conference even started. So they must have known they weren't coming. Or they said, if you're not here by this time, you can't set up.
Yeah.
They probably don't want people setting up in the middle of the conference. But I think from the moment the conference started, when the doors opened, it got busy. Like, it seems like it was busy almost immediately. Like, they were getting people in.
Yeah. Quick. Well, and one more thing on the checking in process real quick. Like after we'd set up and left, and I was thinking about it, about how that armed guard like didn't ask who we were, or like didn't check us in or anything. I'm sitting there, we're back at the Airbnb, and I'm like, is that building just like, can anybody just walk in there and start going through the vendor booths and stuff? Like, is our stuff going to be okay? Is anybody watching it? But I mean, it was fine. I don't think we weren't missing anything. Everything looked just like it was when we left it. But, I'm a worrier, and those are the kind of thoughts that go through my mind with stuff like that, especially with security and stuff like that. Given my background, I'm always thinking about stuff like that. But it was just kind of weird how there didn't really seem to be any like official, like, what are you doing here? Are you supposed to be here? I mean, I felt like anybody could have walked in off the streets and just started doing whatever, as long as they weren't tearing shit down or destroying anything. You probably could have walked by a table and filled your pockets and walked off.
I bet it would have been more difficult if you came from a different part of the building, but because we came from the kind of hidden, underground, I think they weren't really worried about it. They figured if you can figure out how to get through to here from there, you probably know you should be here, because people aren't just going to wander down that scary freaking ramp down into the darkness.
You think that?
It was fine. It worked out fine. Well, let's talk about the day of the conference itself.
Yeah. So what was it? It was like 9 to 7. Mm-hmm. The doors open at 9. Pretty much as soon as the doors start, I mean, you can tell when the doors start open because you just hear, you can hear them before you can see them, and the people just start coming in. And you always get the people that walk by and look, and you can tell, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to come back later. I'm going to come back and look at this. You see a lot of the same vendors. Remember, we saw the couple that we had met in Lexington. Mm-hmm. And that was the lady that was like, she came up and she's like, I had no idea who you were until I saw you on TV. I didn't know you were.
Well, she said she saw you on TV. She was watching like something Bigfoot with her mom, and she recognized you, and she goes, oh my God, that's the guy who had a booth next to us in Lexington. Like she recognized you because she bought your book in Lexington, Abandoned, and then her husband bought some stickers from us because I think he does the design, so he liked looking at the different designs. And then this time around, she bought your second book, Squatch Cop. So, and she's like, I saw you on TV. I couldn't believe it.
But yeah, so you see, some of the same people, and we saw Russ Accord from Expedition Bigfoot. We got to talk to him a little bit before the conference started, and it's always good to see him. We saw, I met for the first time Sean Forker and Baker from the Sasquatch Experience podcast. I've been on their podcast before, but I never met them in person, so that was kind of cool. But it's a one day event. It's only from like 9 to 7, and of course, having a booth where I'm selling books that people want signed, it's hard for me to get away from the booth sometime. And I didn't quite get to hang out with everybody like I wanted to. I went and hung out with Seth and Alex Petikoff for a little while, but for the most part, I stuck around the booth as much as I could during the day because I want to sign the books for people. But yeah, I had a good time, and I noticed at one point I got up to go to the restroom. And I was walking into the restrooms where the speakers were. And I walk in, and Alex Petikoff was speaking, and he was talking about the cabin at Area A. Because they'd gone out there this summer and done some filming. And it was kind of weird walking in and see it, because I saw the picture, and I'm like, I know where that is. And then hear him talk about it. So that was kind of neat. And I hope the people got a kick out of that, hearing that. The speaker hall looked almost full when I went in there and he was talking, and you could tell like when a speaker would go on, because the crowd would kind of thin out, and then they'd have little breaks where people would come through. But what were your impressions of the conference?
So I think now this is my fourth conference, and it's amazing how none of them are ever perfect, but I guess that's pretty much impossible. I liked the setup. I thought the tables were separated nicely but still close enough to where there weren't large gaps. I liked the fact that the speaker booths were right next to everyone else's booths. They weren't in a separate room, and we could not hear from the speaker room, it wasn't carrying over, so we didn't have any kind of overlapping back and forth that was annoying. So I thought the setup was great. The informal check-in was a little weird. You know, we've never had it to where like you didn't have a little more formal check-in process, but and then they had food right there in the main area, so I was able to pull away and get us some grub. So no, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it a lot. There were big rushes of people during the breaks, and I felt kind of bad because I think sometimes there were so many people that people felt obligated to move more quickly from around the booths than, you know, maybe a lot of people, or maybe they're just looking for a particular thing, so they weren't really, you know, doing more than a, you know, quick glance. But and then we have people who want to talk to you, which is fine. You know, that's what you're there for, is to, you know, network and to talk to people. Not just about your books, but about Bigfoot. But a lot of people have a tendency to linger a little too long, or when someone else comes up to the booth that might be interested in something, they wouldn't really move to the side temporarily and then continue the conversation during a lull. So I could tell some people wanted to like talk to you or maybe ask about the books or some of the stuff we had on the table, but they couldn't quite find a moment to break in to the conversation. So I think a lot of times people need to realize that, you know, yes, you're there to talk to people, to discuss things, but you're also there to raise funds so you can continue research.
True. Yeah. There were some interesting conversations had, but again, you know, there was a couple of times where I was talking to somebody and I could tell there was somebody behind them or off to the side that kind of wanted, you know, or they'd be like pointing at my book and then like talking to whoever they were with, and they would stand there for a few minutes waiting for a chance, and then they would wander off. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh man, you know, like, did I just miss a sale, or are they going to come back? You know, which, you know, I try not to make, it's not about the money really, but at the same time, it kind of is, especially when you travel that far. You know, it's nice to make a little bit back, you know, to justify the trip and to put into the coffers. But, man, there was some cool stories I got to hear. There was some stuff about, you know, Bigfoot, and Dogman always comes up at the Bigfoot conferences. People always want to talk about Dogman. People always want to tell you about their own encounters. And, you know, that's great. And that's what, you know, like the Sasquatch experience guys, they had a whole, you know, that was that's why they were there, was to collect encounters. And I think they got some. In fact, they just put out a podcast yesterday or today, I think, where they talk about the encounters they collected during the conference. And I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to count and see how many that they talk about that I heard myself from people at the booth.
Yeah, I don't mind interacting with people and discussing, you know, what goes into some of the stuff that we've created. But for me, you know, I'm more interested in just being your support staff. You know, I'm there to help you and assist you. And I like seeing the new places and meeting new people, but I'm not quite as interested in and what people have to tell me. But hopefully that doesn't sound too bad. But sometimes I can hold my own okay, just because of, you know, what I've learned from you and watching some of the same stuff you watch when I'm in the same room. But a lot of times people start talking and it goes over my head. I'm just like, if you want to talk about Alaska, I'm your person. If you want to talk about orbs, I might not be able to help you so much. But no, I mean, people I thought were really nice. We had some nice people come up to the booth. It seems like everyone was having a good time. So I think this conference was a success.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we're kind of trying to do like a little circuit. So we did Lexington, we did Gatlinburg, and I'm thinking I want to try something like maybe the Mothman Festival in West Virginia or something like that. I want to try and do one more that we haven't done yet. And then maybe we can kind of say, okay, well, let's go back and do Crypticon, or let's go back and do, you know, Gatlinburg, you know, kind of weigh the pros and cons of each and decide which one we want to do. Really the only con that I have against Gatlinburg is that it was only one day, and it seemed like it died down pretty early compared to some of the others. I think we were at Crypticon. We made sales during the last hour. I think we even made a sale, maybe made a sale or two while we were tearing down. Gatlinburg, I don't think we made any sales in the last 2 hours.
Well, what was weird too is the paperwork we got from the conference said that you're not allowed to shut down prior to it stopping at 7 p.m. So I was like, okay, like we're not allowed to take anything down until 7. Everyone around us started tearing everything down about 5:30. And then finally about 6 o'clock, we're the only one that's like not tearing anything down in our row. I mean, people had their stuff cleared away completely by 6 o'clock, and we hadn't even started shutting down, which it doesn't take us too long. But I was like, we're going to be the only ones left, and no one else was walking around really. So we were like, okay, I guess we won't get into trouble if we go ahead and shut down too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of it's a written rule that you're not supposed to break down early, but I think everybody everywhere does it. I've kind of noticed that so far. It seems like nobody pays attention to that rule. And, honestly, those guys that were tearing down, they've probably done it a lot more than us, and they're probably like, okay, this is it. It's done. And they were right. Once they started tearing down, I don't think we sold anything else after that. And, I know we stayed, kind of stayed in place till it was like 6:10 or 6. It was a couple of minutes after 6, I think, when we started tearing down. Of course, it takes us, 10 minutes. The most, complicated thing we have to do when we're tearing down is to fold the tablecloth. It doesn't take us that long. But yeah, we were tore down. We were back at the Airbnb by like 6:45.
Yeah, I think a part of the problem is they had a speaker on at 6, and the speaker wasn't going to end till the conference ended. It was kind of weird timing.
Well, it was
Q&A.
It was a Q&A with all the speakers.
Yeah.
So I think everyone that was on the floor, all the shoppers, basically went in there for that. Maybe I don't know how long it went. Alex, I think, told me it ran a little long. So maybe if we'd hung around till after that, maybe we might have made another sale or two. Mm. But I don't know. I don't think so. It seemed like pretty much after that it was done.
Yeah, I think maybe they should have ended the Q&A then before the end of the conference, so that way, last minute shoppers had an opportunity to shop. But having the Q&A go at the same time the booths are like getting ready to shut down, I think maybe wasn't very helpful for shopping. But oh well.
Yeah. And my only other criticism of the conference, which is my criticism for most conferences, is that I wish it was the vendor area was free for everybody, and then you just pay to go in and see the speakers. There was so much foot traffic outside. If even 10% of those people just wandered through, their numbers would have been astronomical for people walking through. I wish, and I've seen a couple of conferences where they do that, where the vendor area is free for everybody, and then to pay the paid areas where you go to see the speakers. And most of them have, they just don't have the venue set up to where they can do it like that, where they have that separation between the speakers and the guests or the vendors. But I think they could probably do it there if they really tried. All they would really need is just some more of those barriers that they had. They had those barriers set up for the lines for the speakers. All they really need is just a couple more of those set up, and somebody checking badges, to give people access in there to the speakers.
Well, when I went into the speaker room to use the restroom, I actually had a gentleman stop me and ask if I needed help finding a seat. So they were at least observing people, like trying to help people find seats. So they could have totally turned people away if they didn't have wristbands to see speakers, if they were just walking the floor. But yeah, I was kind of surprised when we first learned that basically members of the public weren't allowed to just come in for free. They had to pay a minimum of $25 for general admission. So my sister, brother-in-law, and niece wanted to come to the conference, and they didn't care about seeing any of the speakers. They just wanted to see the stuff on the floor and kind of see, us work. So that means she paid $75 to come in, and for my niece to get a little Bigfoot plushie and, walk around and kind of say hello to us. So I felt kind of bad. I was like, man, they paid that money just to basically be there for an hour and for my niece to find like a Bigfoot, toy she wanted. I was like, that's not very, I don't know. They need to encourage people to be involved in the Bigfoot world, not, turn people away by saying there's a price to this. But, oh well, I would still go back, to the Gatlinburg conference.
Yeah. I think we'll probably definitely head back to Gatlinburg as tourists at some point and possibly go back to the conference. I want to check out Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, and I don't know. I want to check out the Mothman Festival at some point, even if we have to go there as tourists. But I kind of want to do a couple more conferences in that part of the world, and then decide which one we want to do again. It's fun because it's a conference and you get to go and work the conference, but it's also, we both have family in that area. So, it's a good excuse to, do some traveling and, see a part of the world we haven't seen before and hang out with family members. And
well, I think that's the babies telling us we need to stop because they're barking.
There's probably a moose in the yard or something, and they're trying to scare him off. So anyway, that's our hot take on the Gatlinburg the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg that just happened this last July 2022. And we will be back here in the Alasquatch studio here pretty soon. We got, like I said earlier, we got some company coming this week, so maybe not episode next week, but the one after definitely will have something for you.
Only if my sister, who's visiting from Mexico, has something about the chupacabra, but I don't think she's seen the chupacabra on her daily hikes there.
Yeah, I think chupacabra is more Cuba, maybe the Bermuda area. Yeah.
Hey, and if you were at the conference and you're now listening to the podcast brand new, thanks for joining the community. I hope you enjoy the older episodes and the episodes to come. And if for some reason you didn't pick up merch at the conference that you're interested in, make sure to visit our website, alasquatchpodcast.com, and pick up Beans' new book, Squatch Cop, and anything else that tickles your fancy.
Yes. I always forget to pimp the website when I'm signing off here. Most of the time we do a wrap up like this for most of the conferences we go to. Otherwise, I generally have some kind of Alaska themed content to go on here. Occasionally we'll talk about something out of Alaska or a different state, but most of the time I try and keep it Alaska themed. Talk about Alaska issues, stuff like that. But
well, if you want something Alaska, let me put it like this. The Smoky Mountains were beautiful, but I couldn't help but think they should change the name from Smoky Mountains to Smoky Really Big Hills.
Yeah.
Ours are a lot bigger.
I made a post on Instagram when we got to the bed and breakfast, and I was looking, and I'm like, I took a picture and I posted it to Instagram. I'm like, they call these mountains?
Everything's bigger in Alaska, including the mountains.
That's right.